Welcome back to the Castos YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a look at adding subscribe links or icons directly into our Castos podcast player, which you can see right here on the screen, or our Seriously Simple podcasting player. It doesn't matter. I'll show you how to do it in both places. The logic is largely the same. We're going to copy links from places like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, put them into the designated fields in the settings page, and then you'll magically have some subscribe buttons. So let's just take a look at it by default. This is one of my personal podcasts. I've stripped out all of the share links for the purpose of this video, and what I'm left with is the default. The one I can't remove is Spotify because that's sort of built into our platform. But you can see right here, we have a Spotify link, and that allows somebody to grab their phone, click on it, and it'll automatically bring them to the Spotify app so that they can either listen or listen and subscribe. So I'll just click it here, and you'll see it'll pull it up on the desktop. It'll open up my Spotify account with my podcast right here, and then I have the opportunity to follow it, which I already do, of course. But it's also this is a method to allow your show to be amplified a little bit more. So one of the things that we want to do is we look for more subscribers for our podcast. But we have to give the subscribers a chance to subscribe. So if you're not doing it in other marketing material or anywhere else on your website, you want to at least do it right here in the player. So let's say I wanted to add iTunes to the mix. I wanted to have an iTunes icon here. The quickest thing you can do is search for your podcast in iTunes and grab the URL in the browser. So right up here, I'm going to copy this, Control-C, bring it into my Castos settings. So if I'm on the homepage of my Castos account, I click on my settings, I go to distribution, scroll down, and you'll see under the distribution settings page, there are these fields, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Stitcher, Google Play. I'm going to paste that link to my iTunes page there, save podcast details. We'll go back to my post with my podcast on it, hit refresh, go back to the subscribe page, and now there's the link for Apple Podcasts. And we also include the link for Overcast, which is a podcast listening app on Apple. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. Overcast is probably one of the most popular podcast players for Apple products for iOS, and since it largely uses the same feed, we'll just throw that in there for you so you don't have to do any of that extra work. So now, again, anyone who's on an iPhone or an iPad can click the Apple Podcast link. It'll open it up in the Apple Podcast app, and then they have the choice to listen or subscribe. It doesn't automatically subscribe them. It's bringing them there to prompt them to subscribe. So it's not a one-click subscribe, it's a two-click subscribe, but at least it brings them there. They get to explore your show, and then they have the opportunity to subscribe. Now, you can do this with any of these other outlets that we have in the settings. So we can go to podcast settings, distribution, and then you want to do the same thing for the rest of these outlets in order to fill out those icons from appearing. If you're doing this on Seriously Simple Podcasting, on your WordPress site, and you're managing everything from here, and you don't use Castos.com proper, you go to podcast settings, then feed details, and then scroll down to the bottom of feed details, and then you have those same fields to fill out. So Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, and you paste in that Apple link right here, hit save, and then it'll show up on your player just like I demonstrated a few minutes ago. Okay, so the whole point here is we want to be able to give our podcast a chance to be amplified for subscribers to come to the show or come to our website, listen to an episode and go, yeah, I kind of want to subscribe to that. They don't have to look anywhere else. It can be right in the player, and they can subscribe right there. And these are things that you can verbally cue your audience into. So as you do an intro, an outro, an ad read, somewhere in the mix of the show, you can tell people, hey, if you like this show and you're listening to it on my website, just click the little subscribe button in the player and then subscribe using your favorite podcasting app if you're a new listener. The other thing that I would recommend is creating a subscribe page. So this is a little bit of bonus material here. What I think every podcast creator should do is create a /subscribe page for their podcast. and really just keep it focused on those links that we were talking about today. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, like whatever distribution points you definitely want people to be able to subscribe to, have that on a subscribe page. And then I like to couple that with an email subscribe, because as a podcast creator, one of the best things about creating a podcast is we have this deep connection to our audience. They're listening to us in their headphones, usually a personal experience of doing things like going for a walk, commuting, working out, something like that. And you're right there with them. And email to grow an audience is very complementary to that, and is a great direct way to get in touch with our audience. Another great way to measure the success of a podcast as well. So I recommend everyone having a /subscribe page on their website so that you can audibly cue these folks into going to that. So again, you're doing ad reads, intro, outros to your show. You want to say things like, go to castos.com/subscribe to grab the links to our podcast and sign up to our email newsletter. And you want to put this on repeat, because just like every other traditional advertiser, it really only works when you keep repeating it, when you keep repeating that value add, that same message, and then finally somebody says, yeah, I've listened to enough shows here where I do like the content, I do like the host, I like what they're doing, I'll finally go ahead and go to castos.com/subscribe and listen to their podcast or subscribe to their newsletter. Okay, that's the lesson for today. We added subscribe links to our Castos or Seriously Simple Podcast Player app. Hope you found that useful. If you do, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/Castos, and we'll see you in the next video.